Okay. All right. Well, that's the Oscar part of the broadcast. Let's get to the real. Did you see Fusli call you out on her pod?
It's okay. Yeah.
Good to be.
No, yeah, I agree. I think that's good. But yeah, sometimes I'm just like, oh, like I've got a strong opinion on this thing. And I'm like, I don't.
This is from 11 months ago, man. What are you doing? That's from 11 months ago. Stalin wasn't a vampire. Wow, confirmed tanky. You know it.
New strike.
Here's some more tanky news. U.S. and U.K. launched new airstrikes against Houthi militants in Yemen to stop against Red Sea, which, of course, I am against that because I am a tanky, a Muslim tanky. I want to restore the caliphate is basically what I'm saying, because I don't think that we should be bombing all of these countries. Anyway, here it is. America doing more good guy stuff, because this is good guy stuff.
On Iran-backed militants in Yemen. The latest response to repeated attacks on ships in the Red Sea. Senior White House correspondent Selena Wang has the details for us. Good morning, Selena.
Hey, good morning, Michael. The U.S., UK, and its allies have launched another major attack against the Houthis in Yemen. Now, their goal is to stop this militant group that's backed by Iran from continuing to attack ships in the Red Sea. But so far, multiple rounds of U.S. strikes, including a massive joint airstrike led by the U.S. earlier this month, they have failed to stop the Houthis from attacking. But this time, officials say that they have hit an underground Houthi storage facility in addition to drone and missile sites. Now, U.S. officials, they insist to me that their strategy is working, that it is making it harder for the Houthis to continue their attacks in the Red Sea. But the Houthis say they aren't backing down. They claim that their actions are in protest of Israel's military campaign in Gaza. It's created.
It's kind of crazy that they're at least admitting that now. I feel like people who misunderstand your opinions on things don't get your extreme levels of sarcasm. Yeah. Here is the straight man take here. Okay. It's kind of interesting that at least the media is like, one, openly admitting that the attacks are not successful. Two, at least mentioning what the position of the Ansar Allah government is, right? Which is good. Russia getting massive W's from Israel going batshit. Dude, if I was more of like a Ukraine NATO adjacent liberal, that's what I would say. I'd be like, Russia got Hamas to attack Israel so that Israel would strike back, and then all of the weapons would go to Israel instead of Ukraine. Therefore, Biden has lost the Russian gambit. Something like that. Yeah. Russia and Iran are propping up Hamas. My giga-lib parents literally had that exact same take. Yeah. Yeah, Russia. How far does it go, chat? Think about it. Stalin was pro-Israel, okay? How far does the well go? Dun, dun, dun. And everybody knows Putin and Stalin, same guy. Lockheed Martin court stock jump when Biden declared Yemen bombing campaign. Yeah. That is such a stretch. Okay, I'm being sarcastic now. Everything I just said was a joke. Okay? What? Interview on Yemen? All right.
Costly disruptions in one of the world's most critical trading routes, and it's created a dangerous situation. There's no clear end in sight to these back and forth strikes that have the potential to spiral into a wider war. Mary?
That is certainly the concern, Selena. Thank you.
I think part of the reason why it doesn't spiral into a wider war is because a wider war is just ongoing. Like, think about it this way, okay? In the news, you sometimes hear about like Iranian-backed militias striking American bases in Syria or Iraq, specifically in Iraq. And you're like, American military members are in Syria or Iraq? I thought we like pulled out of those places. What's going on? And it's a testament to the reality that like the broader conflict is already ongoing. It never stops going on, I would say. So That's why it's not like, I guess, escalating into something even deeper. With the exception of like bombing Yemen, because bombing Yemen is broadening the conflict for sure. What is this? I'm a total noob, I know, but is tanky a derogative term towards lefties and is reclaimed, or is it a specific kind of leftist slash communist? It originally was invented in the UK to suppress the Hungarian Revolution, counter revolution, with the usage of tanks. So the British anarchists and British leftists, by and large, considered anyone who defended the USSR's actions there to be a tanky. Nowadays, it just means like anyone whose opinions I don't like that is a leftist. I guess back then it was kind of like that too, but it's mostly just a way to try and fit you contextually into a box that you can prop up and say is bad and wrong, while simultaneously still having some kind of claim over being like a progressive lefty. People that used to call leftists SJWs now use tanky. Yeah, it's just, that's it. It's a very liberal thing to say. Gross. Yeah. I thought it meant you just like tanks. No, I mean, yeah, that's a part of it. It's just used for libs to say you're going too far. Yeah, that's true. But also the strikes aim to temporarily remove the Houthi capabilities to specifically target ships and bases with their missiles and drones. The goal isn't to unseat the Houthis or kill the leaders of the Houthis, so their power / control isn't directly threatened, and so Iran won't get directly involved, etc. Yeah, but it still's not stopping it. And the more it doesn't stop it, the more the attacks will continue. Some of those attacks are going to inevitably hit civilians. Like, we know how America operates. If they continue along with this trajectory, they will inevitably say, well, maybe it's better. Regarding why it isn't. Oh, yeah, you're right. Regarding why it isn't becoming a regional war. Sure, fair. It is broadening the conflict for sure, and we know how the American and the allied forces operate in this situation, and we'll see what happens. I thought it was a China communist because you're an apologist for the Square incident. Wait, what? No, they just say that for China and everyone. Look, nowadays it's just used by those who I guess are outside of the confines of like the American State Department positions. The Square incident, he means like Tiananmen Square. It's a terminally online liberal pejorative for anyone who's to the left of them, yes. And anyone who doesn't like fit the bill in the traditional ways that you're supposed to be like kind of in defense of the American State Department's positions on everything. Like if you say, hey, I don't think it's a good idea to bomb Yemen on moral grounds, like not even pragmatic, just straight on moral grounds. I don't think we should be bombing the poorest country one of the poorest countries on the planet, right? That just withstood a genocide. And if you say that, well, then you're a tanky. You want like Yemen to come and kill America. Like, it has definitely escalated into anything and everything that the American State Department considers to be a foreign adversary. It's like it's very successful way to counter propagandize against those who are anti-war by making those guys seem like they're silly and ridiculous because, like, of course America has to do war, but in a progressive way. That's it. Because, like, it's basically like saying, well, I don't think you understand how homophobic the Yemeni population is. You must be a tanky, as though we're, like, bombing Yemen to make them gay or something. Deprogramming is about asking questions, and I think letting people deal with their own contradictions. Yeah. They're liberal, except they think anyone wearing a balaclava or hijab needs to be liberated by gay bombs. Kind of like that. The word comes out of anarchist circles. Tanky equals pro-state, pro-imperialist leftist. Yes. Tanky is a thought-terminating cliche. Yes. It has like a similar utility to when someone says this is a terrorist. It is a way to just like, but because it's lesser utilized and lesser known for the most part, most people don't even know what the fuck it is. So you have to like explain the label first and all of the negatives associated with it. But overall, it's like it's like terrorism is something that you know. Everybody knows what terrorism is. It's bad. It's a non-state actor. They're doing bad. They're killing civilians, and they're violent barbarians, and they must be stopped through violent means, right? So like, but the real purpose of the distinction, the real purpose of the of slapping that sticker on someone on the political side is to deny them their habeas corpus, like the people that you're prosecuting. If you do apprehend them, you don't give them the normal civil liberties that you would give to other criminals. So that's number one. The other political purpose for it, from a marketing standpoint, is to just say, don't even like try to understand where they're coming from, because then you'll be giving into them, and these guys are bad, right? It's like the greatest example of this, something I've talked about a lot, is with Hamas, right? Like Hamas, just like any other militancy, engages in acts of terror, okay? But then there are certain circumstances in which like Hamas's militant wing 100% is not engaging in acts of terror. Right now, Hamas is not engaging in an act of terror inside of Gaza. They're actually defensively defending themselves. They have all of the rights, all of the legal rights under international humanitarian law to basically defend themselves and the Palestinian population inside of Gaza against a belligerent occupier. Israel, on the other hand, is currently engaging in statewide terror. Israel does not have a right. Yes, Hamas does not have a right to kidnap people. That's true. Okay, that's true. You don't have a right to kidnap civilians. You do have a right to have prisoners of war, but you do not have a right to kidnap civilians. So that part is correct. Okay. However, if we're looking at like war crimes across the board, Israel is engaging in a tremendous amount of war crimes. Hamas isn't defending Palestinians, though. They're just trying to inflict damage on Israel. No, right now they are. That's just not correct. So, having said that, the reason why we got to this, the reason why we're even talking about this is because like we were talking about the terrorism distinction, right? That designation is given across the board to people so that you can just completely remove like rational thought from their behavior. Because the fear is, well, one, it's a much more effective way of marketing whatever you do to deal with them, right? If someone is a terrorist, then yeah, 25,000 Palestinians are killed over the course of 100 plus days, and that's totally valid. Because why? Well, we're dealing with terrorists. Like terrorism is hard, you know. We got to do counterinsurgency. Like we have to do it, and you know, in that time frame, like we're gonna kill a bunch of people, and it's whatever, you know. They're not human though. So that is it's a convenient way to slap someone with a bad guy sticker, and then also yell at anyone and everyone that even tries to understand what their position is, right? Like, if you even try to understand if there's any sort of rational thinking or any sort of logic in their actions, no matter how violent or inhumane those actions might be from time to time, and October 7th is a great example of the barbarity, for sure, right? If you do that, then you're a bad guy too. You must be like a defender of terrorism. Now, as a Muslim Turkish American, I'm no stranger to being called a defender of terrorism. I gained, I guess, I've started doing political commentary at the tail end of the Obama Islamophobia era, right, where it was popping off for sure. So I was always branded as a Muslim apologist, and that kind of went away under the Trump administration for a little bit. But we're totally back to that worldview now, and I do definitely remember the way that people were branded like Saddam apologists for being anti-Iraq war invasion, right? The illegal and unjustifiable occupation of Iraq, which now everybody agrees was bad, and also claims that they were against, even if they weren't. At the time, the overarching feeling was, oh, dude, Iraq, you don't want America to invade Iraq, but do you love Saddam? You know, he gassed the Kurds, right? He gassed the Kurds. And why do you hate our military? Why do you want terrorism to win? Why don't you go there? Why don't you go there? Why don't you go live there if you don't like America? So basically, that exact same principle has been recycled in different ways, and they still do that. Can't wait for every bloodthirsty lib call for genocide right now and say, like, in 5 years they were against Israel. Gonna be the whole this you posting happening. It doesn't matter. None of the this you shit matters. Guys, the reality is you can be wrong every day at the behest of the American State Department, and you will be elevated. Okay? No one will care about how wrong you were. On the other side, however, if you oppose the State Department and you're wrong one time, they will never let you forget that. Look no further than Hassan thought Russia would never invade Ukraine. I have been branded a Vladimir Putin defender and Russia supporter in perpetuity, despite the fact that I've never been a Vladimir Putin defender at all. Right? So it doesn't matter. And in order to make that narrative stick, people have gone to incredible lengths claiming that, like, I was duped by Arma footage, okay? That someone sent me in the chat, even though, you know, it was like a 30-second clip, claiming that, no, you say you were, but it's so stupid because you've never actually watched the full video. You've never watched a full video. Like, if you look at the actual video, someone sent it in. I thought it was real for a second. Okay, I started off hate watching you for that one. Lol. Now I agree with you on most things. This is a common thing, by the way. A lot of people do come in here and think that I'm a hyper pro Russia guy or something, and it's not the case. Oh, by the way, Yugopnik Twitch, thank you for the raid. It was a gun shooting tracers that spelled send nudes, and you realized it was Arma all 15 seconds after the clip started. Yeah, but the first 15 seconds, I'm like, what is this? And that's all that has gotten play. It's a very famous clip. It's a very famous clip of people thinking that it's like it's real, that like, oh, Hassan got duped for this. Look at him. He got due for this. And if they had ever watched, this is facts. I used to be a DGG viewer and I heard about you. Then my friend recommended you, and now I simply do not watch the support tech air conditioning technician anymore. I don't know what that means, but yeah. I don't know what any of that means. But my point is those get elevated over and over again, over and over and over again, and it doesn't really change much because people are not really interested in what my perspective is. But yeah, if anything, people fool the Ghost of Kiev are worse off than your take. I mean, yeah, at the time I covered the Ghost of Kiev being most likely and not a real story, but it didn't matter. There was a bunch of stuff that like the pro NATO side were wrong on, but it didn't matter. That's my point, guys. You will always hear Noam Chomsky getting like something wrong. Like Noam Chomsky originally said with the Khmer Rouge, like I would hold back on believing the State Department information and I would wait for more information to come, right? And they use that against him every day, all day, every day, nonstop, right? Why? Because he spent his entire comparing himself to Chomsky, Lamau, but real. No, of course, I'm not saying I'm like Noam Chomsky at all. Please do not misunderstand me. After all, I never hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, and I would never do that. Okay? My point is, if you are against the overarching State Department narrative, there are certain things that everyone kind of associates with you that is like bad, and they point to it even 50 years into the fucking future. Okay? And that's not about finding the truth or having like a consistent moral position or anything like that. It's simply it's simply just going, well, this guy was wrong 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and I'm going to somehow make that like a moral issue. Like I'm going to say that he was wrong, remember, 60 years ago. But don't forget, most of the people that you listen to that are in positions of power have gotten things wrong over and over again. But if they've gotten things wrong over and over again at the behest of the State Department, then it doesn't matter. That's it. No one will remember it, and no one will care about it. Okay? You get a free pass as long as like everybody agrees with you. So that's it. Now, having said that, yeah, libs don't even care anymore. Look at the Nord Stream example. Yeah, this is a great example of this. I see we've reached the CIA probably blew up Nord Stream. Who cares, bro? Stage. This is a great example of this. If you remember, but you were fooled by it. See, this is what I mean. Like people still ride this thing. Nord Stream is a great example. The Bolivian coup is another great example. Every single liberal that defended the American position on this project, right, on both of these things, right, no one punished them for it. No one ever brings it up. Because why would you bring it up? It made no sense for Russia to blow up its own pipeline. On its face, it made no sense. I called it out. I said, I don't know, maybe, but it seems very unlikely at the time, right? And liberals went along with it. They were like, no, you're wrong. You're actually wrong. It definitely was Russia. Did a single person ever get called out for it? Did a single person ever get called out for the supposed Cuba Libre protests that were happening, SOS Cuba protests that were happening? Fox News and even liberal outlets showed pro-Cuba counter-protesters as though they were anti-government protesters. To that length, to that extent. Okay? But it doesn't matter. The Venezuelan election, remember when the New York Times said it was rigged and it was later confirmed by the EU and UN that it wasn't? Yes. It's just like we move on from it. Okay, we move on from it no matter how ridiculous it is, right? Like Havana syndrome, another complete falsehood that I was completely correct on. Like, it was ridiculous. And there were liberals who believed that too, that would come in here and yell at me about this. This does not mean that I won't get things wrong. Of course I do. I'm a human, okay? I'm by myself. I'm a human being after all. And I certainly will get things wrong from time to time. Everybody does. It's just, if you're getting things wrong while you're simultaneously, defending a position, even though you get things right almost all the time, but you make mistakes from time to time, people will grab onto it and use that as a way to say, look, he's wrong. Don't listen to anything he has to say. Please do not listen to his commentary, no matter what you do. Just watch me tell you in like 3-second clips, 8-second clips, 20-second clips that I've like massaged in this direction, and get mad about him anyway. But like I always say, if you come in here and you're open-minded, if you're charitable, you will understand that you've most likely been lied to about my positions. That's it. Other than the top of the hour ad break, which is true. That is definitely something I will serve you at the top of the hour. So anyway, is this supposed to be some kind of gotcha? Yeah, it was probably CIA. Like, are you 5? You are ignoring the part about the far left now perfectly okay with causing oil and fuel leak into the ocean when they criticize over the Nord Stream. CIA acts on its accord 80% of the time, this guy says. I find it hilarious how hard the left cried when the Nord Stream pipeline got blown up and they said it was an environmental disaster, but shooting missiles at large ships full of oil and fuel is apparently okay in their book, Lamau. I think that it's not even comparable to the Nord Stream leak, but it wasn't the environmental disaster that was the major issue there. Yeah. Yeah. The pipeline is going to cause a significantly larger environmental impact than a boat. Yeah. All right. Here's the an ad break now. Anti-trans bathroom genital check bill may pass in Utah. That's insane. Have you heard about the cyber attack Russia did against Sweden? Over 120 authorities are not going to get their salary paid because they've shut it down completely. I think this is the war against Sweden from Russia. That's crazy. Also, notice how they don't criticize the U.S. for dangling NATO like a carrot stick for 16 years. If they think NATO and Ukraine are so critically important, why does that not bother them? For Ukrainians, like, they have nothing. Ukrainians are very similar to Kurds in that regard, where they just have nothing. Like, they don't want to... Like, I understand... there is, especially now, the overwhelming majority is, in my opinion, not even remotely interested in associating with Russia, obviously. But given the chance, normalization with Russia is completely gone. But even if there was like a percentage of the population that was interested in dealing with Russia, okay, before the invasion, it was still not enough. It was a marginal percentage of the population. It was just not enough for it to be like a democratic association. And beyond that, at this point, it's like, yeah, they would rather get Western money, especially in the short term, and deal with the West. Ukrainian foreign minister Kuleba to Western countries, we offer you the best deal. You don't sacrifice your soldiers, give us weapons and money, and we will finish the job.
Important. You save few lives of your soldiers. So we kind of offer the best deal on global market of security.
It was marginal, and then post-2022 it became an extreme minority, quite understandably. Yeah, exactly. The example I use is Kharkiv. Kharkiv had a population within it that you know, it wasn't 50%, but there was still a not insignificant percentage of the population that like identified with Russian culture. There's no such thing at this point. Why would there be? You know, it's just impossible. It's impossible to fucking be pro-Russia when, you know, your apartment complex is being blown up, that your family members escaped the country because they didn't want to be conscripted because Russia is invading your country. You know what I mean? It's just like not going to happen. The Crimea take pisses normies off. Yeah, there's a difference between Crimea and the rest of the other parts of the invasion. I know. The Crimea take absolutely frustrates people. It'll be frustrating when Zelensky or whoever is the Ukrainian leader, inevitably, if there is a peace deal, will throw the Crimea conversation back 15 years into the future for a democratic referendum vote on it 15 years in the future in an effort to just like stop the conversation from happening. The reason why they will do that is because Crimea is not like the rest of the country. The annexation of Crimea was not like the rest of the annexation of Ukraine. Anyway. Do you think the model of social democracy in the short term, socialism in the short term applies to the third world as well, or do more dire conditions and intervention from the CIA and the like necessitate a revolutionary approach? Anyway. How much of the anti-Ukraine propaganda is true, mainly the Nazi part? I mean, Ukrainian nationalism has a history with aligning with Nazis. That is true. And we did arm units like the Azov Battalion that were seen as the first line of defense in Donbass specifically. That also was, you know, that is also true. But overall, politically speaking, the Azov or other nationalist factions, hooligans and the like that were fascist or fascist adjacent, their impact, in my opinion, has grown dramatically and has been directly whitewashed by Western media now as a direct consequence of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. A take that was probably my most prescient take. Something that I said directly on the day of the Russian invasion. Now, by the way, this doesn't mean that Russia doesn't have their own fucking fascists. Of course they do. It's the dumbest situation. You got fascists on both sides shooting at one another. So what you're supposed to look at is not like the prevalence of neo-Nazis in either side. What you're supposed to look at is whose cause is just. And my perspective on this has not changed. What Russia is doing in Ukraine is unjustifiable, immoral. Okay? What Ukraine is doing is emancipatory and just. This is why I regularly have talked about people just despise you because your foreign policy takes, because they get clipped down to snippets. There is no winning. Yes. This is why I've talked about over and over again how much of a massive failure the Russian invasion of Ukraine has been. How much of a massive failure the Russian invasion has been as far as like galvanizing other NATO countries, reaffirming the necessity for NATO in the eyes of the Western world, and even having formerly neutral countries actually join NATO. Massive issue. Russia is a fake socialist fascist state. There's nothing socialist about Russia. Russia is the remainder of the dissolution of the USSR, and it's absolutely propped up by Western-backed kleptocrats who were anti-regime, pro-regime change, and pro-capitalist, Putin himself included. Yeah. Minutes ago, Turkey just ratified Sweden's entry into NATO. Well, Turkey will do whatever they're told. They probably cut deals. Russia doesn't even ever pretend to be socialist. Putin doesn't ever pretend to be socialist. The only thing that Putin cares about as far as like USSR imagery is the projection of strength, spanning over a vast territory, controlling, natural resources directly. That's it. There's nothing communist about Vladimir Putin. The only reason why this kind of imagery is invoked in Russia is because it is considered, the USSR is considered a fucking world power at the time. Not just a regional power, but a global hegemonic power. So it's a way to project strength through this mythology that you build. There's a strong communist party in Russia, though, but they won't win any elections. Strong communist party in Russia. There is no party in Russia that isn't controlled by Vladimir Putin. Get out of here, dude. Come on. That's ridiculous. The strong communist party of Russia also was pro-invasion of Ukraine. Get the fuck out of here. This is stupid. They're not strong. It's all fake controlled opposition. There's one dude that runs the show there, okay? The Russian socialist lie the Western tells are leftovers from McCarthyism. I think so too. Russia has an effective four-party system and Putin controls all four of them. Yes. So what happens when Putin dies? Massive destabilization. We'll see. Vladimir Putin. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Yevgeny will return. No, Prigozhin. I saw a post saying you support the annexation of Crimea a few days ago. The comparison of that framing to what you just actually said is crazy. Your haters say that your positions lack nuance, but if that were true, they wouldn't feel the need to lie about them. Yeah. Anyway. In Russia, inside of you, there are two wolves, and they're both controlled by Putin. Yes. Yeah, I don't know what will fucking happen if when Putin dies. Not if, but when. I mean, he's old too, so we'll see. Kadyrov Ascension, Muslim Russia. Yeah, dude, Russians are gonna let a fucking Muslim Chechen guy run the show. Come on. Yeah, no, they're gonna have a Dagestani dude. They're gonna get Khabib Nurmagomedov run the country. It's the same clip, but they never watched the full clip. Yeah. They're gonna have Hezbollah run the country. Anyway. The oligarch with the biggest military support will become premier, or America will worm its way inside. We'll see. I have no idea. I don't want to talk about it. The nuance is that we actually support Crimean annexation for the Tatars and by way for the Turks. I've said this before. Crimea belongs to the Tatar population, okay? In a period of Russification, far before Russia or Ukraine had any stake, any ownership on Crimea, the Tatars were forcibly removed from Crimea. So if we're talking about who actually owns Crimea, it's the Turks. Give Crimea back to the Turks, the Tatars. That's number one. If it's not owned by the Turks, or the Tatars, then it's owned by Russia in that situation. Forcibly removed after collaborating in World War II. Doesn't matter. Not Turks, but Greeks. Greeks have an ownership claim over it too. Fine. Crimea, Turkey's Kashmir. Anyway. The latest clip circulating was their stance was NATO was built with Nazi generals and that through neoliberalism, fascism, and Nazism won, but it's just true. Yeah, I think that's one of the funnier things is when like my haters will clip something that is like objectively and demonstrably true, but because they don't know that it's like actually like that, and they know that most people are just like unconditionally going to be pro NATO regardless, they will promote it. It's one of my favorite things that like Post Left Watch or whatever does all the time too. Anyway, we're talking about ownership. Remember, nobody owns Trump. He's a businessman and can't be bought, famously. All right. Let's get back to it though. Explosions occurred. Now, of course, is Crimea a Russian state thing? I don't understand. Crimea is the one of the easternmost points, had a military base, a Russian military base that was lent to Russia by Ukraine. In the 2014 annexation, the Russian military came in and took over and annexed Crimea. Leading up to the Crimean annexation, oh God, I've talked about this so many fucking times. There's videos on it, not from my haters, but videos from my channel, if you'd like to know more about the Crimean annexation by Russia. But leading up to the annexation of Crimea by Russia, and this is like recent history, I'm not talking about Tatars. Leading up to the Crimean annexation of Russia, or the annexation of Crimea by Russia, okay, there were numerous polls done. And the saying at the time, now obviously this is very different now, but at the time, contextually, the further east you went out, the more there was Russia support in Ukraine. Okay? There was political struggles. Russia wanted to keep Ukraine inside of the Russian sphere of influence over the Western sphere of influence. There were a lot of Western NGOs and civil society organizations that wanted to take Ukraine and bring Ukraine into the Western sphere of influence so they can use against Russia. So it had political importance. It's also a material importance. What ended up happening is after Russia's annexation, there were elections held. It's largely bullshit. I care more about the polling done before and the actions that happened after. For Ukraine, one of the moves after the Crimean annexation, after the Russian annexation of Crimea, was to blow up the waterways and dam or destroy the USSR built canals that gave water to Crimea. Yeah, he got Yanukovych to essentially turn against the EU association agreement as a step towards membership, which would move them into the West. Exactly. So the realpolitik answer is that Russia had concerns about Ukraine getting into the Western sphere of influence, and they wanted to stop it. And one way to manipulate that was by having DPR and LPR remain autonomous regions that would still be under the banner of the Ukrainian nation state, but that way they could interfere with the affairs of Ukrainian domestic politics. Okay? Ukraine obviously did not want this. And before that, obviously NATO membership was also dangled as a carrot for Ukraine, just like with Georgia. So Putin pulled a Georgia, or wanted to pull a Georgia, to completely ensure that Ukraine never actually joins NATO, and said that that is a red line, and wanted to enforce that red line. And I was wrong when I said that he would never invade, and thought that they never floated DNR and LNR being under Ukraine. No, that's 100% a part of the Minsk agreements. You're wrong. No. Russia wanted DNR and LPR to stay under Ukrainian territory, but have autonomy from Ukraine in an effort to interfere in Ukraine domestic politics. That was the overarching goal. I'm not wrong on this. That is what they wanted to do. I think the Sevastopol port and the overall military relevance of Crimea are more relevant goals here. Yeah, Crimea is a different story. We need Moldova, Mama Liga. They're the only ones with the correct take. Yes. You said this last year and the year before. Yes. So, I just want to say I'm 2/3 done with the Lex video, and I suggest not watching the entire 2 hours. There's timestamps of the subjects. Much love. Yeah.